Trump has actually managed to get all living hostages returned in Israel. Hamas, though, promptly starts executing Palestinians in the street. China tightens its restrictions on rare earth elements, causing Trump to do the tariff hokey pokey and the markets to go crazy. Steve Bannon says they have a path to getting Trump a third term, and you've got to hear it for yourself. The UK defines anyone who believes Western culture is under threat from mass migration a terrorist. Madness. And SpaceX has a successful launch of Starship, and this is the ship that will make us a multi-planetary species. Got to see this one today.
All right, let's jump over across the seas to Israel and Gaza. We were celebrating last week. Trump was taking a victory lap. The Nobel Peace Prize application was started. And then it seems like Hamas has broken descent. IDF has identified 3 of the bodies that were handed over from Hamas, but the last one they can't readily identify. And then on the flip side of that, Hamas has actively done a few executions in Gaza City in this center square. They were saying that these were traitors who were working with Israel, dissident gangs, and Hamas is trying to now regain control of the city. Trump was also talking yesterday, pushing to disarm Hamas, and Hamas was threatening them, saying he's going to make sure they're going to do it, and they're going to do it quickly. Netanyahu backed them up. It seems like we were all sunshine and rainbows on Monday, Tuesday when the hostages left, and now we're starting to realize, like, wait a second, this isn't as cut and dry as we thought. Do you have any nervousness about this pending ceasefire deal?
Yeah, when you look at the executions in the square, I think it's pretty clear that this is not going to be easy. I don't think this was ever going to be easy. Now, the real question is, who are they talking to? Mm-hmm. Like, who is officially considered, okay, I speak for Hamas, and if I say we're going to disarm, we're actually going to disarm. Is Hamas the only faction? It seems like there are other factions now that are rising up. Have we created a power vacuum if Hamas does disarm? And so maybe Hamas actually does disarm, but then you get other militant groups that rise up. It is a completely destabilized area. And so what's going to be on the other side of this moment, I have no idea. That's why I say you take the win of getting the hostages back, take it one step at a time. Will the disarming have to be forceful? It comes down to who we can trust. So there are people out there claiming to be Hamas that are saying there's no way, we are not going to disarm. We're either going to be fighters or martyrs. That's it, like full stop, end of story. And then you have anti-Hamas Gazan militias that are rising up. And so even if you get rid of Hamas, like how will they break? Like, will they become protectors of the peace, or are they just going to be the next violent faction that rises up? Also, we'll have a clip later on this from John Mearsheimer, but does Israel even want peace? Or is Israel like, oh God, we got some more ethnic cleansing to do? So I think all of this is going to be extremely complicated. I think that if we're going to push this farther and farther into prolonged peace, which is about the most that I will give it, I think Trump is going to have to swing a lot of weight around. There are going to have to be very credible threats in terms of him saying, they're going to disarm or we are going to disarm them. Now, I don't know what he means by that. He's not putting boots on the ground. There's no way. So the only thing that there's no way. There's no way. You want to talk about wildly unpopular things? That would be insanely unpopular. But what he will do, I would imagine, is unleash Netanyahu again to go back in and start bombing them. So I think my prognostication, so I'll plant a flag, and I'm perfectly happy to be wrong, but the flag that I will plant is when he says we will unarm them, it's just we're going to revert back. So it's going to be more of the same. The bombings will continue until the morale improves. Like it will just be that. He'll sell weapons to Netanyahu. Netanyahu will continue to go in and pound them. Netanyahu will say things like, I told you, like there's no way that we can trust these guys. So yeah, you are in a death spiral of every time that you look at the scenario, it's all going to boil down to one simple thing. Right now, Gaza is wildly unstable. It is not a place that I would want to be from. I mean, they literally just executed 7 people in the town square with people surrounding them, cheering, filming. imagine that happened in like downtown LA, like that, the whole world would stop. That would be the craziest thing ever. So that is not a region that I would consider. It certainly doesn't have Western values. It is not a stabilized region. But what it boils down to when you look at it is, did Israel create this instability? And so I don't know that we're ever truly going to get the answer to that. If we can't get Israelis and Gazans to focus on an economically uplifting future, I don't think you can win. It will just keep going and going and going and going. So yeah, we'll see. But the only hammer that I think Trump is ever going to use is Israel bombing Gaza again.
Yeah. Well, this is Trump when asked yesterday during a press conference.
We have told them we want to disarm, and they will disarm. And if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently. But they will disarm. Do you understand me?
Yes. You say
because
quickly.
everyone says, oh, well, they won't disarm. They will disarm. And I spoke to Hamas, and I said, you're going to disarm, right? Yes, sir, we're going to disarm. That's what they told me. They will disarm, or we will disarm them. Got it? Okay.
What is the deadline you're going to put on that?
Here is the playbook that Trump is running. And it is a playbook that has its limits. It has its risks. It has its dangers. There's no doubt. But I also think that the reason that Trump has been able to get this across the finish line is that he tells people, I will drop a hammer on you if you don't do what we just agreed. And then when they don't do what he agreed, he actually drops a hammer on them. So China, be cooperative. No, cool. Then we'll throw more tariffs on you. Okay, we'll cooperate. Okay, I'll take the tariffs off. People see it as Trump always chickens out. I don't think that's what it is. Trump is like, literally walk softly, carry a big stick, though he does not walk softly, but he certainly carries the big stick. And every time that you say something, he pulls the stick out to hit you with it. And if you stop doing the thing, then he puts the stick away. But if you start doing it again, he pulls the stick back out. So given that he dropped bunker busters on Iran, I don't think it is fair to say that Trump chickens out. I think it is very fair to say that he reminds you, I have the stick, and he'll pull it out all the time, flash it around, let people know. And if people back off, then he puts it away. If they don't, then he starts hammering people. Now, the reactions that we get from the stock market complicate things because sometimes the thing that makes him put the stick away is more the reaction in the stock market than the thing itself. But the reason he keeps pulling it back out, and I think that he really will put sanctions on China for sure. The reason that he keeps pulling the stick back out is he understands that there is a deterrence going on. Now it's a balancing act because you can only wield that stick so much before there is secondary damage, like the stock market, that exceeds the benefit that you're getting from wielding the stick. But if you don't have a deterrent, then people are just going to walk over you. This is why the Biden administration was never going to be able to get this stuff done. They were pissing off the wrong people, namely Saudi Arabia. And then they were not willing to be forceful. And because they weren't willing to be forceful, at least not in the erratic, unpredictable way, which has its advantages, that Trump is.
Yeah. Let's jump over to Mearsheimer's comments before we kind of really break it down. Because while I hear you that Trump can unleash Israel, we already sent 200 troops there to facilitate the peace deal. So I can see Trump trying to save face and turning it up, sending in SEAL Team 6, doing some covert ops, things like that. But Mearsheimer kind of gave us a new perspective that it might be Israel themselves who really don't want this peace deal.
I think you greatly underestimate, Piers, how deeply committed the Israelis are to ethnically cleansing both Gaza and the West Bank. The Israelis now have a situation where there are roughly as many Palestinians as there are Israeli Jews inside of Greater Israel. And this is an unacceptable situation for most Israelis. And they're completely committed to ethnically cleansing Gaza and then the West Bank. I think the evidence is overwhelming on this. Now, you say President Trump sees this as a great opportunity to prove that he's a statesman and he can bring peace to the Middle East. I think in principle that he'd love to do that. But I've written a book with Steve Walt on the Israel lobby, and there's absolutely no question in my mind that if President Trump gets rough with Prime Minister Netanyahu, Netanyahu will turn to the lobby, and the lobby will force Trump to back off. There's no way Trump is going to get tough with Netanyahu if he violates the ceasefire.
I don't agree with him on that. I think that's a fundamental misread of Trump's personality. Trump is, for better or worse, he will get tough with anybody if he feels like you're damaging my reputation on the world stage. So given that Trump has already gone to Netanyahu after the Qatari bombing and said, you're going to apologize live on TV. You're going to apologize to the Qatari government for the thing that you did. Now, the real question is, so Mearsheimer wrote a book about the Israel lobby. So he certainly doesn't take a favorable view of the Israel lobby. He thinks they have wild and undue influence on the U.S. government. So we'll see how much influence the lobby has on Trump, but I cannot imagine a universe where Trump allows anybody to cow him. Now, he's very strategic, and so he's not going to be unduly clumsy when it comes to people with deep pocketbooks. But yeah, I don't think that Trump would let Netanyahu be the one to violate the peace agreement. Now, I think he will, again, leverage Netanyahu's warpathic tendencies if he doesn't get what he wants from Hamas.
Yeah. Listening to Mearsheimer, I'm kind of agreeing because it seems like Israel has nothing to lose except PR. Because if the ceasefire is violated and Israel goes DEFCON 6 and just kind of annihilates Gaza, completely levels it all, kills everybody, ethnically cleansed, it's going to be bad press. Like the UN has tried to call Netanyahu a war criminal. The Western pressure and TikTok has taught how bad Israel is, but he's still rolling with the punches. And I kind of attribute that to Trump as well, where everybody's calling Trump a Nazi and all these types of bad names, but he keeps pushing, keeps going. I feel like Netanyahu has a similar kind of composure where it doesn't matter what you guys say, I'm still going to do the thing that I want to do. Do you think that it is beneficial to Israel to kind of continue with the pursuit if there is any cracks in the ceasefire, or should they try to maintain it and work with Hamas, even if it means kind of taking back some of the force that they used previously?
Okay, so when I'm teaching entrepreneurs, which I do all the time in Impact Theory University, sign up today. One of the things that I'm always telling them is, what is your goal? So it comes down to what Israel's goal is. So if Mearsheimer is right and Israel's real goal is, bro, we got to ethnically cleanse these guys, then yes, it would behoove them to look for any reason to kick things back off. They're going to be whispering in Trump's ear, look at these guys, like they're violating. We got to go. Hey, they're not disarming. Trump, bro, like you really going to let them clown you like this? So if that's their goal, that is for sure how they're going to be behaving privately and to some extent publicly. Now, if their goal is the long-term success of Israel, which is going to need partners on the international stage, they have to understand that they're using what I'll call a caustic strategy. Now, when a chemical is labeled caustic, what it means is it's going to burn you. So you've got to be very careful. Hey, this acid will help you dissolve the paint, and so you can get down to the bare metal and you can work your way back up. Very useful. However, you're going to need to wear like these industrial strength gloves, because if you don't and it touches your skin, it's just going to melt your skin. So that's the strategy that they're running right now. Is yes, it's helping them in terms of if they want to ethnically cleanse Gaza, then yeah, like keep going, bomb, bomb, bomb. However, the whole world is turning against you. And the thing that I worry that Israel is not being honest with themselves about is what it looks like when you raise entire generations around the world to view Israel as the bad guy. And so all of the benefit that they built up over World War II, so like people of my generation were just like, yo, can you believe this horrific thing happened to these guys? Of course, they have got their own state. Look at everybody in the region attack them. They're like this small group. They're the underdog. Like, come on, we got to root for these guys. Judeo-Christian ethics. We've got such a tie. Like everything is wonderful. They're our allies, special relationship. Go, go, go. And then over time, the narrative has really started to change. And this has just pushed it over the edge. We're now getting into just open anti-Semitism. You're getting into people around the globe just completely flipping on Israel, to where now the people that don't really think through it and they're just going along with the crowd, they're going to be anti-Israel instead of pro-Israel. And since I think the vast majority of people don't actually have a well-formed opinion that are built from the facts ground up, they're just going with the flow. The flow is now going against Israel. So it might be an effective short-term strategy, but it's not a good long-term strategy. So if I were Israel, I would long ago have started running a different strategy where you have to give them a chance now to regroup, to prove that they want something that's economically sound moving forward. And at that point, if they go on the attack again, then of course you hit them back. But I'll put a period there. But there is this idea of total war that is always fascinating. It is how Israel gets caught in a gotcha.
You can't just leave me, can't tease me.
We'll return to the show in just a second, but first, let's talk about priorities. You're committed to eating high quality protein, as you should be, but you're also committed to not wasting time. You could spend your weekends driving to different butcher shops, comparing cuts, hoping they have what you need, or you could do what actually makes sense, have premium protein delivered to your door on a schedule you control. That's what I do, and that's why my entire freezer is stocked with ButcherBox. I know exactly what I'm getting every time. Quality I can count on without needing to leave my house. With ButcherBox, you're not getting some random selection they want to get rid of. You're getting a full year of whichever protein you actually use the most. Consistent quality you can trust, delivered when you want it. New users receive their choice of steak tips, ground beef, or chicken breast for free for a year, plus $20 off. Head to butcherbox.com/impact and use code IMPACT to pick your free protein and get the $20 off. Now, let's get back to the show. All throughout human history, when you went up against an enemy, you killed them until they lost the will to fight. And literally nothing stopped you. You just kept going until they were all dead, or they were so broken that they're like, subjugation is way better than what we're going through now. And so people would give up. Okay, so the whole idea of total war, there's no limitations, there's no pullback. We're going to go until the other side relents. It is an unconditional surrender. World War II, we drop atomic bombs. Like, we just keep escalating. And we're like, hey, everybody chill. Oh, you won't chill? Bigger bomb, more deaths. Hey, everybody chill. Won't chill? Cool. Bigger bombs, more deaths. Hey, everybody, fucking nuclear bomb on the first site. Are you done? No? Cool. We're going to the second site. And our rhetoric was like, do you really want more? And so we'll just keep going, but you're going to unconditionally surrender at some point. And so the Japanese in World War II finally go, cool, unconditional surrender. No one ever lets, from an international pressure standpoint, nobody ever lets Israel play the game of we're going all the way until these guys unconditionally surrender. And so it's like, from a moral perspective, is anybody surprised? Nobody should be surprised. Nobody wants to see that. We see too much of this. Starting in the Vietnam War, we could just see everything. We were seeing it in real time. And so Israel's caught up in this thing where they are in the middle of hostile neighbors, especially West Bank and Gaza. And from a moral standpoint, because we have so much visibility, the world's just like, no, you can't go all the way. Now, from the numbers perspective, I don't think anybody argues that their combatant to civilian ratio is like the best ever. So in Iraq and Afghanistan, I believe the US was something like 5-1. So for every, please don't quote me on that. Somebody look it up, but it isn't 2-1. And so we went in and said, hey, we're trying to stabilize this area. We're only trying to kill combatants, but like, hey, somewhere around 5 civilians are going to get killed for every combatant that we managed to take out. Israel's numbers are 2-1. And at 2-1, at least the last time I checked this math, which was like maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago, at 2-1, it was higher than the numbers of total deaths that Hamas was counting. So I doubt that that's wrong. So if they're doing like better civilian to combatant ratio than basically any war ever, then this becomes, they're being looked at through a different lens than certainly we were in Iraq than we were in Afghanistan. Not that people were clapping for us, but there wasn't the like outrage that we see with Israelis trying to wage this war. And there's a phrase that says, no Jews, no news. And just like the amount of coverage on the Hamas executing the Palestinians, imagine if that had been footage of Israeli soldiers executing Palestinians. Like, holy Jesus. Jeez. So there is like this really fascinating different response now that the Israelis are perceived as the bullies and they're no longer perceived as the underdogs. And so that's where like they're stuck in this weird position of the world just isn't going to let them prosecute the war all the way to an unconditional surrender. Now, on one hand, that's awesome, right? Because, hey, that means we're stopping wars.
Yeah, we're stopping like dead bodies and things like that.
Yeah, amazing. On the other hand, it's like, that's why this conflict has drug out for whatever, 60 years, 70 years.
Yeah. It's interesting because as we were kind of debating the ceasefire and what's going on, the DSA, the Democratic Socialist of America, released a statement in response to this.
Sorry, hold on one sec. Elena, Hamas took credit for the video. Hamas has verified the video themselves. So they are executing people.
Yeah. As right where I was going next, that the Democratic Socialists of America have released a statement condemning the ceasefire, vowing not to stop until the liberation of Palestine. They didn't say the destruction of Israel, although this person who tweeted it wants you to say that. And as I was reading it, I was like, wait, for somebody who just signed a ceasefire, this sounds like increasingly pessimistic. I thought with the ceasefires, the hostage release, we should at least have a moment of celebration. Yes, we got one step closer. I know there's 1,000 steps on this journey, but at least we took step 1 and 2. But as I read through this statement, and we'll link it for people who want to see it, it's long, I don't want to read it all out loud. They made it seem like, yeah, we'll wait. It's a hurry up and wait situation. Like, okay, we understand that they announced this, but we've seen them go back on their word in the past, and we're not going to stop until Palestine is completely liberated and they have the autonomy to have their own statehood. So I was like, okay, this seems like this will create dissent. And then flash a couple hours later, that's when Hamas begins to execute people that they call, they were either working with Israelis or rival gang factions that were trying to assert control. So it seems like even on the Hamas exclusively side, taking Israel, taking Trump off the table, there's some dissent in the leadership as opposed to what the messaging is to the wider world that, hey, Palestine liberation is still far away, to within the city, people aren't even agreeing who should be in charge anymore. Do you think this could be like a monster that eats itself situation that hopefully it kind of solves the problem, quote unquote?
So I think the right way to understand this moment is that you have on one side in Israel, you have a government that is a well-organized killing machine. And then on the Gaza side, you have militants who are perfectly happy to die in the cause of fighting back and being able to control their own destiny and run their country the way that they want, and will kill their own people, will kill other people. They'll do it in the most savage and horrible ways. And so once you understand man as animal, man as capable of the most grotesque and horrifying violence, the second that they see the other person as the other, then you can start mapping what's going on here. If you think that you have two sides that are both these just calm, rational actors, everybody really wants peace, it's just like a big misunderstanding, we're in a Hatfields versus a McCoy's tit for tat, and we just need somebody to simmer it down, you're going to be very confused by how all of this plays out. You have people with competing desires that will kill and just murder their way through the other people to get what they want. And so when people like the DSA, and for those asking, the DSA is the Democratic Socialists of America, and you should care because they are gaining in popularity in America and they will positively destroy this country. And I mean destroy in the Mao China way, where people are starving to death. It doesn't happen overnight. I'm not saying if Mom Domini gets elected, the people in New York are going to be starving. It's not going to play out like that. I'm saying it is a momentum in a direction that not only can, but does and has led to tens of millions of people starving to death. So people break bad, people do really stupid things, and this goes all the way to just terrifying proportions. Remember, in my lifetime, and while I'm old, I'm not that old, in my lifetime, middle schoolers were beating their teachers to death in China at the request of the head of state. So don't lose sight of that. Okay, so going back to, you've got these two factions. They both believe that they are speaking on behalf of God, that they both have God on their side, that they are supposed to be doing these things. They view the other as the other. That person is a danger to their entire way of life, to the mission that God has put them on, and they're going to keep killing. I just don't think people understand man as a violent animal nearly enough. And so if you think that they're just this poor underdog that's being bullied, then you're going to be very confused by what you see on the ground. They are radicalized. Mm-hmm. They are completely prepared to be violent. They are prepared to kill the other side just in the most blanket, horrible ways you can imagine. And now the question is, which side am I talking about? Mm-hmm. Because I'm talking about both. So that's why this is going to be very messy. Now, I think that the way that they each play the game is different. So Israel plays the game through a political lens, and Hamas plays the game through a thug lens.
I want to jump over to the China-U.S. trade war for a second. Because I think that this is ever escalating, and there's been some crazy reports that are coming out. There was a couple different Chinese news, and I'm just going to put asterisks on these things because Chinese media is state-owned. So this is like if Trump ran a news company and was doing press releases. So let's take all of this with a grain of salt. But in September, it was announced, the numbers just came out, that China's exports beat expectations, and their imports rose at the fastest pace since 2024. And this also includes the 15% drop off from its exports to the U.S. due to tariffs and the trade war. On top of that, it's been released that the China trade surplus has surged to a record 1.14 trillion in June. So
with the U.S. or globally?
Globally, just as they get globally with their,
I mean, in fairness, they force-fed countries to take their goods when the U.S. stopped importing because of tariffs. Mm. And so that's why all of like Asia and South America were like, hey, like you're now just going to crater all of our industries because you're sending us all this stuff at a much cheaper rate. This is where global economies get very complicated because, well, Drew, isn't it good? China's sending you things that are cheap. You guys can now get your insert good here cheaper. Why would anybody complain about that? They'll complain about that because, yes, you can buy things cheaper, but a whole bunch of your countrymen are going to get fired because their businesses are all going to fold because the government is no longer protecting them from a country like China, which will just literally predatorily send you so many goods that your market gets flooded, all of those companies fold, all of that institutional knowledge gets lost. And now you're beholden on China in the same way that when Walmart comes into an area, or this isn't so true anymore, but Starbucks will go into an area, all the local coffee shops will close. And so that's the problem. So that number hides the fact that China was like, enjoy, we're just going to send you a bunch of cheap stuff because we're no longer selling it to America. And it caused massive problems and will continue to cause problems if they can't stop them from doing it.
Yeah, and there's some second order consequences that are happening now. This is a Trump tweet from Truth Social yesterday. I believe that China is purposely not buying our soybeans and causing difficulty for our soybean farmers is an economic hostile act. We are considering terminating business with China having to do with cooking oil and other elements of trade as retribution. As an example, we can easily produce cooking oil ourselves. We don't need to purchase it from China. This is also on the backs of Trump announcing a bailout for soybean farmers locally after China walked away from the market. They bought $2 billion in soybeans last year. This year, that number I think is at like $0 ever since the trade war was announced. So cold turkey didn't, and then they bought it from Argentina. We talked about that last week. It seems like we were waiting to ice China out, and with recent reports, China's like, yeah, we're good. Like, keep doing your thing. We're good.
You had an opportunity to ice China out in like 93. It doesn't exist anymore.
Got you.
It hasn't existed for 20 years. I mean, it is, look, this is a hard game. And the reality is that populism goes on the rise as a reactionary force rather than a predictive ahead of time force, which then it might actually be useful. But this is the nature of the world. You let it go too far, the power balance shifts, and this is why one country never dominates for long. Because, 250 years is a long time, but you'll get the next person's going to get their shot, because these forces, they move in waves, and things change over time. It's wild. I may not have given you everything you want there, but I have something on my mind that I really want to share with people. Right now is a psychologically very difficult time, and I can only imagine the level of anxiety that people feel. So one of the things that I want to make sure that you feel supremely confident when you come to watch this show is we're going to be talking about solutions. I hold myself accountable to that in all the deep dives. I'm never going to release a deep dive if I don't have at least, hey, this may not be the perfect way forward, but go do this. One, if you keep your head about you and you're focusing on solutions, these are the hard times that make strong men. So congratulations. On the other side of this, you and your kids, you are going to be stronger. Now, it's never fun to go through something like this. I totally understand that. But there are solutions. We all will weather this storm. You will get to the other side. Things will be awesome. If you keep your head about you, this doesn't need to be unduly disruptive to your life, but there are going to be things you want to do. Most importantly, getting your personal finances in order that will allow you to weather the storm better. So try to view the things that are happening not from inside the storm, but from outside. That's going to help you a lot. So for instance, if you are set, this is why I screamed literally at the beginning of the feed, not to do things on leverage. If you're not doing things on leverage, don't even think about the stock market in less than 3 or 4 year increments. Okay. So you make sure that you can afford to do that. That is the key. So that way, when stocks dip, it's like, oh, whatever. It becomes more of a curiosity, an interesting way to look at how economies move, what's going on right now, what would have caused this, what's going on with investor sentiment, that kind of thing, rather than the panic of, oh my God, how am I going to make rent? Again, never argue with what is true. So it simply is true that right now the government prints a lot of money. And given that the government prints a lot of money, you have to be in assets. I'll leave it to you to figure out what's the right asset for you. It's very difficult. No one can see the future, least of all me. So the best thing that you can do is try your best based on historical evidence and your mapping of cause and effect. But there is a way through this storm. Everybody that plans and is diligent and is calm is going to make it through this just fine. But I certainly understand psychologically the chaos, just the vast majority of humanity does not deal well with those fluctuations and that level of chaos. So just want to acknowledge, I get that people are going through this. It's not fun.
Your calm resolve is warranted, and I appreciate it. It reminds me of Victor Gao. He's a Chinese professor, and I have been stalking this dude because I feel like you would love a conversation with him.
Let's go.
But I cannot find his actual real life information. But this was a UK interview he did at the beginning of the trade war when we first kicked off, and his resolve is a little bit different from American sensibilities. So I just wanted to kind of hear from the Chinese perspective.
That in this scenario, to use your metaphor, the US has the bigger gun, and so China ends up having more to lose from this trade war, doesn't it? It can't sustain the loss of 15% of its export market, i.e. what you export to the US.
Not at all. China is fully prepared to fight to the very end because the world is big enough that the United States is not the totality of the market in the world. So if the United States wants to go in that direction of completely shutting itself out of the China market, be my guest.
Yeah, and China will lose the US market, which, as I've said, is 15%.
We don't care. We don't care. China has been here for 5,000 years. Most of the time, there was no United States, and we survived. Wow. And if the United States wants to bully China, we will deal with the situation without the United States.
I love it. This is the exact attitude that America has to have, which is, hey, love China, wish them well, be awesome. The more we can work together, that'd be wonderful. But the reality is we're not going to allow ourselves to be beholden to China, which we have done, by the way. There are people in my life who I love very much that just don't have their eyes open to the reality of what it means to be beholden to China. And this is why China's saying, hey, those rare earth elements, we're going to put restrictions on them. And that's basically them saying, we're going to restrict your entire modern way of life. That the fool's errand that it was to globalize such that we don't control our own supply chains is wild. It is wild.
It sounds like we gave ourselves the rope to hang ourselves. Like if we go back 90, I think if we flash back to the 90s and we had a chance, I think somebody would like slap Bill Clinton and be like, hey, don't sign that. Don't sign that. Like,
Yeah, 100%.
you know what I mean?
So the reality is that being able to partner with China is glorious, so amazing. Not only did it help them pull their own people out of poverty, which is an unmitigated good and everybody should love it the most, but you really do have to be very thoughtful about what are the things that we know we would never want to be outside of our country. This is, you were asking me about, whether I would interview Myron Gaines or not. And my response to you was, I need a value that I establish so that when you bring me people like that, I'm like, what is the value that I run this through? And we needed that same thing with trade on a global stage. Like, what is the value? Is the value that America has to remain dominant? Is it that America has to remain sovereign? Like, but we need some sort of value like that there are going to be 5 or 6 industries where it's like, we absolutely, or maybe there's 25, but we absolutely must control our destiny in steel, microchips, like whatever. And so from the perspective of, I get it would be cheaper to send this stuff overseas. However, we're going to need to give some economic incentives to make sure that some percentage of this always remains here. You probably don't want it to be 100%, and trying to make it 100% makes you purely isolationist. That's not the game that you want to play. But the super fast and loose of everything can go away has created all kinds of problems. And it does work just fine until something bad happens. And then you realize, oh my God, not only am I driving without a seatbelt, I'm actually on the hood of the car. And now if we get in an accident, I'm 1,000% dead.
Yeah, I'm getting like chicken or egg vibes from this whole thing, because I think when we made the deals that we made, we thought they were going to lead to other outcomes, and then
But they do for a while. Yeah. The thing is, like, I don't want people to be confused. Globalism was awesome. So the 90s were rad. The early 2000s were rad. Even if you don't take an American stance and you just say, dude, China stopped killing its own people, pulled more people out of poverty faster than anyone ever in all of human history. It is really, really, to have been on that timeline is very extraordinary. It is a beautiful, if you're pro-humanity, which I very much am, it is a beautiful thing to see. And so, like, I love it the most. I love human life being saved. It's just incredible. So it really was great. It just, you can't be in this all or nothing camp. Like, you really do have to have limitations. You have to have borders, boundaries on things. So this is why, like, one of the things that we're rediscovering as a nation is, oh yeah, like, we do have to have boundaries. And what we're discovering is, and it gets tricky to talk in these words, but these are the real words. So I'm going to keep talking, even though I know it creates confusion. But when you feminize culture, where it's permissibility all the time, it's compassion first, and there's no sense of like something can break bad or somebody might try to manipulate or take advantage of me. And you just like, oh, whoever's struggling the most, give. When that is your leading energy, which it has been for quite a while now in the West, you start seeing the problems that we're having now, where you should have boundaries, you should have borders, you should have restrictions, you do need discipline. And when you have those two things in combination, where we love and want to extend compassion and help along with, but not too far. And we also have to make sure that we're fed first. And, you know, the whole idea of first I fill my cup up and then whatever flows over, then of course I'm going to want to see it get to other people, but my cup must overflow first. Like, those kinds of attitudes, we're going to find we have to bring back. And so do I wish that humans were better at finding a balance? 1,000%. Are we? No.
This reminds me of this graph that I seen floating around X. I don't know if you've seen this one, where like, kind lies make your society actually acutely better, but chronically worse, about how kind lies, and then over time you kind of fall off. I know a lot of times you see it in like relationships or with friends. They're like, yeah, you look fine. Yeah, you look fine. Yeah, you look fine. And then 3 years later, that person gained 1,800 pounds or something like that. Now it's an intervention. So there is a certain point where we have to be honest, I think, with us as a society to say, hey, we need to make some drastic moves that might not be profitable today. We need to plant some trees for the next generation. We need to start. And I think that's the one thing that I will call myself envious of China, in the sense that they're like, oh yeah, we got time. Like, oh yeah, 4 years, 8 years, 12 years, it doesn't matter, 5,000 years. Like once he said that, that immediately kind of ejected me out of the moment of like, but what about ice on our streets? That doesn't matter. 25 years from now, what the world's gonna look different. 300 years from now, what are we gonna do? What kind of country do we wanna be? And I think America has lost that grander vision, the one that, you know, George Washington had, like, hey, 250 years from now, we're gonna be the number one, like, country. I think they did that right going forward, but I think too often we're now looking back as opposed to like, okay, what's the next 250 going to look like for us? What's the next 500 going to look like for us? And how do we go in the right direction from there?
Yeah, and listen, it works just fine when you actually allow people to be free. Where it starts breaking down is you don't have a long-term vision, your politicians are divided, and you're robbing people of freedom. Like if you let people be selfish and do their thing, obviously on rails, I'm not a no government guy. You do want some limitations, but when you let people be free and you let them pursue the things that they think are right, when they think, oh, this could be a huge opportunity for me to get rich, then we start innovating and we innovate like crazy and it becomes absolutely incredible. Where it becomes a problem is where you have all of that division and you start trying to clamp down on people. It's then you break like the one thing that you had going for you that made up for the fact that we're not coordinating for 100 years, 200 years. We're like, no, just go do whatever you think is the right thing to build right now in this moment. It works in the long run when the marketplace is able to actually function. But when you distort the marketplace so much by manipulating the currency, by picking winners, regulatory capture, you get nothing but distortions, and that we're getting dangerously close to that.
When I first seen this, I was like, all right, this is stupid. Like, this is not really a thing. And I'm talking about Trump's third term. And
this is crazy.
And then I started seeing the merch sales, the Trump 2028 hats. I was like, okay, they're trolling. This is like not really a thing. Like, this is stupid. And now I'm hearing Steve Bannon talk on 3 different shows saying the exact same thing. And for those that don't know, Steve Bannon is the architect behind Trump's first run in the first place.
Who went to prison, by the way. For refusing to, like, I think they held him in contempt.
Yeah, refusing to testify at the J6 committee. Yeah. So it seems like with this, there is something happening here and they are really pushing for this. I want to start with the Cuomo interview first, because Cuomo even says like, hey, you're a smart guy. I'm not going to call you dumb for saying this. So where is the actual behind? So I'll let you guys hear it from Steve himself.
Well, a man like this comes along once every century, if we're lucky. We've got him now. He's on fire, and I'm a huge supporter. Want to see him again in 2028.
And obviously, anybody who doesn't like what you say but judges it as a function of a lack of intelligence doesn't know anything about you. I don't make that mistake. You're a smart guy. Oh, you know he's term limited. How do you think he gets another term?
We're working on it. I think we'll have a couple of alternatives. Let's say that. We'll see. We'll see what the definition. We'll see what the definition of term. We'll see what the definition of term limit is.
All right. Well, so you're talking about litigating this issue, because I don't want people to listen to our interview and say Bannon's cooking up an insurrection. Bannon is cooking up. You know what I mean? I want people to get a straight take on where your head is. What are you suggesting?
Chris, as you know, I've had greater long shots than this. When we supported President Trump after the election, I realize you don't believe the election in 2020 was stolen. We do. We fervently believe that. When President Trump went back to Mar-a-Lago on January 20th, 2021, he was the longest of long shots to return to the White House. We said that day in our podcast and doubled down, having President Trump's back, that he was coming back not just to win the primary, he would win the White House, and we had to get organized and drive that victory, and also start working on all the policies.
Such a trip, man.
What's called Project 2025 or the America First Policy Institute, but all those different think tanks that started putting in the policies.
There's so much power
that you're seeing.
The scenes. That's what's wild. That right now, these guys are trying to figure out a way to skirt around the Constitution. Play the Bill Maher clip, because this is exactly how I feel.
I didn't do it for Donald Trump. I did it to stand up for the Constitution. That committee was totally rigged, and I didn't mind going to prison.
I brought a copy tonight. Here it is, the Constitution. Can I read a passage to you?
Here we go.
Amendment 22, no person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice. And yet you keep talking about Trump's, maybe you should have this. Here,
Bill Maher is good at this.
I'll get you to sign it backstage and underline.
I will.
President Trump didn't bring up running for a third term. Myself and others brought up running for a third term. President Trump is going to run for a third term, and President Trump is going to be elected again on the afternoon of January 20th of 2029. He's going to be president of the United States.
Okay, but the thing I just read in there, it seemed like there was no wriggle room there. It seemed like it was just, 8 or 10 words that said only 2 times.
We have a team of people that are working. A team.
How can a team do something about that? What? I don't care if the team is 12 trillion people. The words are still the words.
Bill, every day in federal courts, right now in federal courts, there's 120 lawsuits on what President Trump's doing for his Article 2 rights.
This is wild. This
on
is
the
all
unified executive theory. But he's chief executive, he's commander in chief, and he's chief magistrate and chief law enforcement officer. There's 100, and they're running to court every day to sue President Trump, all because the interpretation of this. The interpretation of this is open for interpretation.
How could it be open? Could I have it back? How could it? I'm sorry.
Yeah, so he's really banging this drum.
No. You got to let him read it again. Like when he goes through this is how I feel.
You would agree he's a person. Okay, shall be elected. He was elected to the office. That's the office of the president more than twice. Twice is once and then another time. I don't see what the team is finding.
Okay,
we'll disagree.
So he says it in the first interview that we watched. It was like, we'll see what the definition of term is or something like that. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, oh my God, these people do not learn their lesson. So this, crazily enough, would not be the first time that we had somebody serve 3 terms. Mm-hmm. It has happened before, which is why we put in the amendment, because we realized, they're just going to keep running. So, man, it was always sort of a gentleman's understanding that nobody would run for more than 2 terms. And once they did it, then they realized we have to enshrine this. We did enshrine it. So if they're able to get a constitutional amendment passed, cool. I stand by. Obviously, there is a way to amend the Constitution. We want there to be a way to amend the Constitution. But there are things that are interpreted by the court where it's like, okay, admittedly, like this one's maybe not as clear as we want. Like take the Second Amendment, for instance. Mm-hmm. For a well-armed militia or whatever. There's a lot to talk about with that. Like, does that mean then that the average person could just have a gun? Like, I get when people are like, okay, there's a debate to be had.
What's the definition of armed? What's the definition of militia?
1,000%. Mm-hmm. So now it's this one is pretty clear. So this feels like people are trying to skirt it. I don't think people are being honest about why we have term limits. The whole structure of the US government was to stop power from accruing too much. Right? There's so many quotes from founding fathers about this idea of like, hey, we are very much aggressively recognizing that humans tend towards tyranny, that power corrupts, absolute power corrupts absolutely. And if you let a monarch happen, what ends up transpiring is over time, that power just solidifies. And so you've got to keep mixing it up. This is why I think deep state is the right word. I think that it is problematic that we let the power accumulate in all of those ancillary positions, and we're not being honest about what causes that problem. And so the longer one person is in that position of power, you just really begin to crystallize whatever issue you have. And then you get a despot, or you certainly run the risk. Everybody wants a benevolent dictator, and very rarely do we get one. And just because the first king is benevolent doesn't mean that the next king is going to be benevolent. And so if we set the precedent that people can just keep running and running and running, you're going to get somebody who isn't going to be in their 80s run. They're going to be in their 40s or 50s. And now all of a sudden you've got a Putin situation or a Xi situation. I think it is an absolute fucking disaster. This is not what we want. You talk about banging pots and pans. I will make a lot of noise on this podcast if this man starts running for a third term. That is a terrible idea. And that is, let's say that the economy is just booming. It is still a terrible idea. So yeah, this is one that people should push back.
He's going to be 82 in 2028.
Dude, if he was 38, I wouldn't care. It's the reality is that when you let power begin to solidify like this, you run into trouble. The reason the American experiment works is we understood, these guys can and will break bad. And that also part of the part of the country just feels disempowered. They're half almost of the country absolutely hates this guy. And so you want to give them a shot, man, where they don't feel like, oh my God, like beating an incumbent is already so difficult. Like everybody always goes, okay, I really hate this guy, but I know he's going to be out in a max of 8 years. That's a very good feeling. Yeah. So it's not a good idea.
Yeah. And it seems like it's bubbling up. And as he said in the Chris Cuomo, they're still repeating that rhetoric that they stole the 2020 election. So that's why they have this new resolve. They feel like their old one, I guess. Hypothetically speaking, walk me down a path. If they did somehow get the Constitution amended, we've done this before. There was, we added things all the time. You know what I mean? So we can, it is legal for a Constitution to be amended.
Correct.
If it does amend and then he does run, is this now like, because what I don't want to happen is we then ban Constitution amendments. So I feel like I'm kind of stuck in the middle because it's like I don't want him to run, but I also don't want to say the Constitution should never change ever and it should be the one document for the rest of history. You know what I mean?
If the people really want to see all presidents, abstract it from the one you like. If they want to see all presidents be able to keep running and keep being elected, then as much as I will go on an absolute tear to try to convince them not to do this, this is a bad idea. If that's what America wants, I'm not arrogant enough to think that I should be the one that's making this policy. So if we can get a supermajority, which I will say the odds of are exactly 0 on this issue, because there's no way the Democrats are going to want to see while Trump is in office, unless he is like so unbelievably unpopular at the end of his term that they think, all right, let's do it now so that we can get our guy in office and run forever, which I don't think they would do until their guy's elected. But anyway, I cannot fathom a world in which we can agree and get a supermajority. So I feel very protected by the structure of the Constitution and our government that this one won't get passed. That's why I'm like, if Steve Bannon is trying to do something via the court, I like double hate this idea because one, no matter how much I love the president, I do not want to see them running for a third term. No matter how many good things they're delivering to the American people, I distrust the nature of governments. And so seeing them solidify power, I know how quickly good can turn bad because here's what will happen. Even like, let's say Trump or anybody else, they get the economy going, it's going in a good place, and then things turn. And now they're making a string of bad decisions. They're going to believe in their soul, but I'm the guy that got you all of this. And so I'm going to be able to get you back. You got to give me time, bro. Like, what the fuck?
One more term, just one more term.
So think about this happening in the UK. Winston Churchill gets you through World War II. He's the only reason that British people are not speaking German. And what do at the end of the war? They boot him out of government. It's like, whoa. What?
It's crazy.
That seems super icy. But they wanted somebody else. Not wartime anymore. You were great at the war. Thank you so much. But we're moving past it. So in the UK, you really can have somebody run and run and run and run and run. And I think it's a terrible idea there. I think it's a terrible idea here. I think people serve their term. They do their thing. And then you get fresh blood. You get new people, new ideas. You do not allow them to convince you, no, I'll be able to find my way back. Now, for people that think that I'm confused, I do know that Winston Churchill was then later, like 5 years later, re-elected him, became prime minister. But anyway, so it is a bad idea for the simple fact that humans become convinced that they are right. People become tyrannical as power consolidates, even if they don't mean to be. Because they think they're right, they're going to keep pushing for it. And unfortunately, we really do have a propensity to just re-elect the same person we had before. And so momentum carries you to a certain degree. It's a bad idea. It's a bad idea.
Chat's pointing out the irony of Trump promising term limits for Congress and then going on this.
Dude, this is, everybody burn this into your soul. This is what humans do. This is how you get the rules for thee and not for me. People are inside their own head. They really believe that they're right. They don't want limitations on themselves. They only want limitations on others. It is an absolutely wild way to walk through the world to me, because it is so obvious that any one human can be so wrong that if you don't have checks and balances, that you could get into a string of doing wrong things is just really, really terrifying. And I'm saying that as a CEO I'm the emperor of impact theory. I can't be fired. But what I remind myself of is anybody who quits has literally just fired me. They've said, vote of no confidence, I'm out. And so I sit with that and I go, okay, cool. Now, it doesn't mean that I'm going to change what I'm doing. I may think that they're wrong. I may think, cool, I totally get it. Let's part ways. You go do your thing. There's a whole lot of reasons why somebody might leave. But I do sit in the moment of, they have said I'm not the best thing for their life at a minimum. Now, sometimes they have reasons where I'm like, okay, I can't offer you that thing that you think is better for your life anyway, whatever. But it's good to sit with it's possible that they see this well and I see this poorly. And if you open that lane of humility, I have found that you're far more likely to suddenly step outside of your frame of reference, see something you were blind to, and now stop making a mistake that you were making before. I really don't trust politicians to do that. You can't trust the average person on the street to do that. And the kind of person that is so confident in themselves that they can push hard enough to be president. If you want to be president of the US, you're basically saying, I want to run the world. That's wild. Mm-hmm. That's wild. That's so arrogant. Anyway, it's good that somebody does it, but ooh, buddy, the downsides of that personality are extraordinary and we must protect ourselves.
I want to keep this thread going because this brings me over to the UK, where the UK government is now defining what terrorist ideologies are. And Tommy Robinson and then some other commentators in the UK have saying that we're kind of going too far. So I want to lay this out there. I'm super curious what Chet has to think because it makes sense to me, but I want to see where we're how you respond to it. This is from gov.uk to prevent duty training. These are terrorist ideologies. Extreme right wing. We define extreme right wing terrorism as the active or vocal support of ideologies that advocate discrimination or violence against minority groups. The three most common subcategories of extreme right terrorist ideologies in their narratives are: 1, cultural nationalism. Western culture is under threat from mass migration and a lack of integration by certain ethnic and cultural groups. Number 2, white and ethno-nationalism. Mass migration from non-white world and the demographic change poses an existential threat to the white race and Western culture. And number 3, white supremacism. The white race is biologically, culturally, and spiritually superior to all other races. An alternative form of government ranging from fascist themes to ethno-tribalism should replace Western parliamentary democracy. The one that is kind of getting highlighted here is the cultural nationalism. Western culture is under threat from mass migration. In your view, I look at this as kind of like the Hitler, it's those guys over there that are coming in that are going to take it. So I think that's what they mean. But however, what commentators are saying now is because we're pointing out the irony of immigration causing crime, causing all these problems in the UK, that they're now saying we're the terrorists for pointing that out. What about this statement do you think that the UK is getting wrong?
Okay, so cause and effect is real. Mm-hmm. So when you do things, there's going to be a reaction. And what the UK government, for reasons that are, I have a story that I tell myself about why they're doing this, but it is so wild. I almost don't want to believe it. But the reality is that where people grow up, what they're taught, what religion is sort of the, in just the background frame of reference that country holds, all of these things matter, and they matter in two very specific ways. Mm-hmm. They speak to your beliefs and they speak to your values. Now, your frame of reference controls not what you look at, it controls what you see. So we can all look at the same thing and walk away saying very different things happened. And this is getting people to understand that the vast majority of the human experience is interpretation. Okay. So what's actually happening almost doesn't matter. It is merely a stimulus that causes a response from a frame of reference. Okay. If I can get people that far, that different people with different beliefs and values have a different frame of reference. Based on those frames of reference, they will collide with each other because they will think the other person is just like completely unhinged because they are unintentionally asking themselves a question: what would their actions mean if I did them? Mm. And so that's why women are constantly confused by men. Men are constantly confused by women because we think, well, what would that action mean if I did it? Now that would be like completely unhinged. And just we're living in different frames of reference. And then the third thing that goes into a frame of reference is biology, which obviously is the big difference between men and women. Okay, the biological stuff, if you've read, as I have, read Mein Kampf, then you would understand where Hitler comes in is the white ethno-nationalism and the white supremacism. Both of those are dumb. So I get why people would be afraid of that, because those are, from a cause and effect standpoint, those are going to isolate people. They are going to make them other everybody that doesn't look like them, which is already, it's just a mistake. It is a category error. You are looking at someone who doesn't look like you and you think immediately, this person is the enemy, when in reality, if you want to know if you will mesh with somebody, you do not need to know anything about their skin color. You need to know about their beliefs and their values. Once you know their beliefs and their values, you will find very quickly whether you guys are going to mesh well together. So immigration, not a problem if they assimilate. Immigration becomes a problem when they don't assimilate and you don't have shared beliefs and values. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean, they're going to fight. They're going to pull in different directions because people will ultimately run into the point where they realize, I'm not going to be able to convince you and I'm not willing to give up my way of life. And so now we're going to fight. And so that is the thing that's happening. Now, the reason that number one is so ridiculous, which again is cultural nationalism, they are defining this as terrorist ideology. If you believe Western culture is under threat from mass migration and a lack of integration by certain ethnic and cultural groups, that's terrorism. That's math. So if I go to Japan right now, I'm going to have every temptation in the known universe to make Japan more like America because that's my frame of reference. I'm almost 50. I'm not going to suddenly wake up and be Japanese. Now, I have a love of Japanese culture, so I can actually imagine a world where I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to go, I'm tired of all this entrepreneur stuff. It's too exhausting. I'm just going to go collect TCG cards and Gundam robots. I'm going to live in Japan for the next 20 years. And while I'm there, am I going to become more Japanese or am I going to try to stay American? Now, my thing has always been, if you're going to a country, you go to assimilate, unless you're just visiting. And so if I go to Japan, I'm going to learn the language. I'm going to adhere to their customs. Now, it's not going to change me all the way. I'm still going to celebrate Christmas my way. I'm probably not going to go to KFC, but it's I'm going, which they really do on Christmas, by the way. It's a whole thing. Yeah. So that's me saying, I have a value system that says, you've got a culture of your own. I have been appreciative of the things that your unique culture has given birth to. So I'm not coming here to try to make you more American. I'm coming here to be more Japanese. So, but I get it. If you suddenly let in 6 million Americans, they're going to start pushing Japan in a direction of being more American. And I would imagine that the people in Japan are going to be like, hey, I like my Japanese culture. I would like my Japanese culture to stay Japanese. So I totally get why they would then have a resentment of Americans not assimilating into Japan, not trying to be a part of Japanese culture. And so if people could just flip it the other way, and instead of making it about whiteys, being paranoid about brown people coming in and fucking, it's not that. It is a set of values. I want my country to be recognizable to me as I age. That's really what you're fighting against. And so that comes down to what makes it unrecognizable. It is not the color of the faces. It is the shared values and beliefs. It's I cannot believe I have to beat this drum this hard, but I feel like I'm in a death loop getting people to understand this. So if you understand, every country has the impulse to, I grew up a certain way. I have a certain frame of reference based on biology, beliefs, and values. Let's discount the biology part because there's so much overlap, regardless of race, color, creed, sex, that one is way more useful when you talk male, female, becomes far less useful when you're talking about the mixing of races. But certainly beliefs and values matter a lot because it's going to pull what policies you want, how you want to see things look. And so people have a really strong impulse to protect their culture. Now, at some point, I guess we just decided that that's not a real thing. And we started importing like just gazillions of people into all Western countries. And now all of a sudden we're realizing, oh, wait, like they're coming with a very strong perspective. They have a very strong frame of reference. And so they want to remake whatever city they land in to what they grew up with and what their frame of reference is. And now people are going, I don't like that. Like there's nothing weird or ethnocentric is complicated enough. Let's stay away from that. It's just a very simple, everybody wants the world to look the way they like it. Okay. And so if you invite people in that want the world to look a different way than you, you're going to have political collisions. We have political collisions between the left and the right, bro. Is that about skin color? That's not about ethnicity or nationality. That's about fucking values and beliefs. So if we can see that differing values and beliefs make the left and the right of a single country at each other's throat and feel like, I don't want you to marry my daughter. Can we not understand? That's the same phenomenon. And you're just getting confused by skin color.
This is a really good point. I want to shout out IG Therapy Mom because she said, when did it become bad to support your host country and to be proud of your country? That ideologies will collapse the UK from the inside.
Correct. It's already collapsing.
When did nationalism become bad?
Italy.
Is there like a certain historical context we might be missing?
This is why people are constantly trying to point things back to Marxism. This is all about being oppressed. This is about class struggles, and we're trying to map it onto race. So the Marxists thought that the lower class, the working class, would rise up and overthrow their evil overlords and usher in a utopia, and it didn't happen. And so they're like, fuck, what do we do? And they found a very useful thing, which is, let's map this to race. Let's map this to the power imbalance. And let's just tell people of different races that you guys are looked down on. You guys are a lower class. You guys are being taken advantage of. Don't worry at all about the individual strength that you have. Focus only on how you're being oppressed. Focus on your victimhood. Robbed everybody of their agency, the very thing that made America the most dominant country the world has ever seen, and just made everybody adopt a frame of reference of somebody who's disempowered and being abused. And now, because people want to fit in and be cool, if being oppressed is cool, then people are like, yo, I want to figure out in what way I'm oppressed. And so you want to talk about racing to the bottom. That is like the dumbest, most disempowered thing that you can get somebody to focus on. So Marxism, the unifying factor.
I got one more for you. I was with my young nephew. I love him to death. I was out in Chicago this weekend visiting him. And he is very on the left of me. And when we were talking about immigration and some of the problems and stuff like that, he showed me this meme. Now, this is kind of like a rework of it, but you've seen it floating around on the internet, some variation of it, about how all these deportations, everything is happening. Prices didn't come down. Wages didn't go up. None of those things happened. Biden got the 6 million people, and that's why your life is bad. Before Biden was here, your wages were still stagnant. They've been stagnant since the 70s. So there's all these things about how the oligarch, the rich person is saying, hey guys, we have to worry about this immigration problem, when, as we could see in the meme, it's kind of like, I got all the cookies, you have your one cookie, and you're trying to get other people to be nervous about them taking your, that whole thing. A lot of times they're like, this isn't really, with all the ICE, with all the increased border, with all the closed, all these things that are happening, has it had a tangible positive effect that we think it was going to have? How do you talk to the people that say this is just a distraction to keep us from holding them accountable to a higher standard, or making the government more accountable to doing more for their actual people? So
first of all, I love your nephew because this is a brilliant meme. Everything in that meme is true. There are people that are very good at getting cookies and they want your cookie. That you may not be as good at getting cookies, and there are two people at the table that want your cookies, and that you are being manipulated because they made the foreigner a different skin color on purpose. And the reality is, make that guy white. Make all three people at the table white. Make all three people at the table black, whatever. They all want each other's cookie. And if we don't understand that within us is let me paint you another picture. Both of those guys sitting directly across from each other. So forget the evil corporate guy for a second.
Left and the right.
Yep. They are both, let's just make them Christian. And my man, the construction worker, sees the other guy wearing a cross. And it's like, oh shit, you believe in Jesus. I believe in Jesus. I believe in the resurrection. I believe in the resurrection. What's that motherfucker going to do with that cookie? Instantly.
Break it in half and share it.
Break it in half and share it. Because they share fucking values. They share beliefs. It is all a trick that they are trying to make it because, hey, the guy with the skin color, and by the way, insert politician, insert greedy, anybody you want. Yeah, of course. If they're Machiavellian enough and they realize, oh, I can divide you over race, they will. 1,000%. And what I'm trying to get people to understand is don't fucking fall for it. So there are some of the reason Homeboy has more cookies is he's just better at playing a game than you. He's playing a different game than you, and regulatory capture is real. And so once you start realizing, oh, the economy has been weaponized against me. Oh, I could, the very way that the rich get richer is available to everyone, but it requires risk and understanding. Most people are not willing to take the risk or the understanding to buy assets, just to cut to the chase of what I mean by that. So all of this is both real and an illusion. You are only trapped if you let yourself get trapped, but you are in a fight for cookies. Now, the great news is through innovation, there's more things available to everybody. Things get cheaper. It's only your government that makes them more expensive. And if I could get people to follow the cause and effect of how economies work, ooh, buddy, we'd be in a great spot. But I can't. Or not as fast as I would like.
Man, we will see what happens. Do you think that there is a chance that this wave of immigrants, when they have children and they start to go to school in America and they start to listen to rap and rock and roll and they roll up their sleeves and they smoke cigarettes and they drive a 1950s Mustang and whatever American values things that assimilates to them with them just being in this country, they date a white woman. Like, what would that, do you think that would culturally, no, but seriously though, like the second generation, could that like be the thing that stops this value breakage that we're projecting on? Because I think there's two different things that's happening right now. I think there's actual problems in the world in October 15, 2025, and there's problems in America that's going to happen around 2040 that's really going to be bad, like really, really, really going to be bad. And I think sometimes we look at the things that are going to be bad and we skip over things that like are actually bad. So I'm asking, is there a possibility that with this immigration, yes, they came, but just like all these other different cultures and classes that come and have been assimilated, they go to church, they meet other people with their crosses and hijabs that they like, and they go into their communities and they kind of separate off and they become thoughtful members of society. Is that still possible? Or is it now like immigration, because of populism, because of the economic strain, do we take a break and pause and wait a little bit until the economy gets better and then we open the gates back up?
That would be far smarter. Mm-hmm. Immigration is a complicating factor, full stop. It's like inflation. You're competing for jobs and now there are more people competing for the same number of jobs. Once you understand that, unfortunately, a huge part of the reason that we imported so many immigrants is because it drove the cost of labor down. And we have told ourselves a moronic story, which is, well, Americans wouldn't do these jobs. False. Like, if people need the money, they will do the jobs. And if the job offers too little money, then people will have to like raise wages to get people to do the job. Mm-hmm. It's just like, this is economics 101. But if at the current rate, an American won't do that job because of the money, then I go, well, can I send this job overseas? Yeah, go ahead. Cool. I'm going to send it overseas. Well, this one's farming. It can't be sent overseas. Okay. Can I import cheap labor? Yeah, sure. Go for it. Then I'm going to import cheap labor. If you give other options, they will take other options, because creating something where the outputs are more valuable than the inputs is ridiculously difficult. And so if people have the option to globalize, they will. And remember, this just all goes in cycles. You globalize, you contract. You globalize, you contract, because there are knowable results to all of these things. So this was predictable when you started globalization in the 90s, and people tried to warn us and we didn't listen. And what they were trying to say is, you're going to end up exactly where we are now. You're just going to have to contract. Now, how could they have known that? Because it happens over and over and over and over and over and over and over throughout history. So the repair mechanism is also knowable. You have to stabilize your country from, they have to stop hating each other so that you don't have this crazy divide. How do you get your country to stop hating each other? You make things economically good and you stabilize the culture so that you've got people that raise their kids to believe similar things, and then they raise their kids to believe similar things. And now you're in a much better position. But we did not choose that path, and people historically don't. In times of plenty, you start trying to reap even more rewards, and you globalize because there's so much money, everybody's feeling good. And especially if you've got countries that are lagging behind, like China was ecstatic for globalization because it is the very thing that helped them get out of poverty. If they had stayed isolationist, they wouldn't have been able to do it. So, but yeah, you have to slow down on the immigration because values and beliefs matter. You've got to see where things are going to settle out. And then, I mean, listen, there's a big push all over Europe, obviously here in the US, to remove forcibly immigrants.
Yeah, that's what's been happening across US cities. As a matter of fact, we have a link for that.
Here's the really bad news. If you could snap your fingers and whatever people estimate if you could remove the 30 million immigrants, it would help tremendously. Now you would have, obviously the real fantasy is only remove people that don't share your values. But even if you just said, an immigrant is less likely to share my values, so cool, we're going to Thanos snap them back to their country. Yeah, it would help. Now, you'll have a momentary blip where you're like, we don't have people filling these jobs. And then people would have to come in and say, yeah, your prices are, for those things, they are going to go up. And we're all screaming about the state of the economy. It's like, yes, you're going to have to start paying more so that real wages can go up. And you need to put the worker, people always default to unions, but unions aren't the thing that helps. What helps is that the jobs are actually here, and that especially like blue collar workers don't just eject out of the labor market because there's no manufacturing. So they're competing, they're pushing for wages. And now you have a pipeline where you don't have to go to college, that you can get a trade job, and that it gives you a great middle class living. And when you have that pipeline and there's pressure on the companies to pay a livable wage, and then you stop money printing, you have to balance the budget, can't stress that enough, then you get back to the middle class prosperity that we had after World War II. I mean, this is just math.
All right, let's go into space a little bit and check out this new SpaceX launch, or should I say landing, because they just landed on some water.
Dude, this is so dope. Give me a scale of 1 to 10. How much are you like, this is the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life? It's a 1. Don't care about space travel.
It's cool. It's definitely cool. I love stars. I'm a sucker for stars.
Do you know how big that thing is?
How big?
It's bigger than most skyscrapers.
Wow.
That thing is massive. It is the biggest flying object ever in human history.
Wow.
And they got it to hover. Dude, this is crazy. This is one of those where I weep. I'm a very excitable person, I will admit. And every now and then I will step inside of like Mason, especially his mind, and look back at me, and I'm a lunatic. But I get very excited about things, but I am very sad for people that don't get excited. Dude, this is incredible. Humans are amazing. We can kill en masse. There's no doubt about that. But we can also build things like that. We are actually going to be a multiplanetary species. There are actually going to be people that live on Mars. There are going to be children born on Mars. They won't know Earth. Earth will be like, they've heard stories, they've seen pictures, all of that. They've played one of the video games that I make that's like a Earth simulator. They're going to love it. It's going to be really fun. But they will have never actually been to Earth. That's going to happen. Now, that's going to happen in our lifetime if you keep your diet right. So, man, I am enthused would be an extreme understatement. This is incredible. All right. The video's been playing. So if you guys are watching it, it is amazing. It launched up. This is is called Starship. They've blown it up before, but this time it actually went up. Now they landed it in the ocean. And if anybody in chat knows why they landed it in the ocean, do tell. But they landed it back in the ocean instead of catching it with chopsticks. And that I don't know why. It may just be, we're not going to bother building that stuff until we know it works. I imagine it's something like that. Is this the one that shows that it lands? Yeah, it is. Okay, cool. So it just completely
that's it on the right side from like a separate boat, and this is it coming down and like turning.
I just cannot believe humans have been able to do this.
I didn't know it was as big as a skyscraper. So
this is so inspiring.
Yeah.
Oh my God. They built what they call the world's most high tech. I forget the word that they used, but the world's most high tech bakery. So they bake the heat shields in their own facility. What Elon is doing, I am so sad that people look at his politics. Like, please, no matter what side of the aisle that you're on, look past his politics. What he is showing that human beings can do is so incredible, man. Because look, he's able to aggregate these people. I am well aware that Elon is not there with a hammer or a 3D printer making these things. But without Elon, you never would have gotten this. His belief, his ability to rally people, his like obsession with efficiency. Like this video makes me want to get in a car, drive to that guy's house that did the video about hustle culture and just slap him like real hard across the mouth. Like, this is what hustle culture gets you. Like, this is insane. This is so cool. This is so cool.
I guess I'll get more excited because I feel like me being a space geek, I just know that the faster than the speed of light thing hasn't been solved yet.
Wait, you're a space geek, but you're not like literally.
Because I'm less like light pollution like bothers me internally. Like, I feel like everybody should be able to go back in their backyard and like look up and see the stars. Like, I'm just
okay.
I like that. I feel like
sort of.
But that's the thing. We want us to care about space, but we don't even see it anymore. And I feel like that's the disconnect that we now currently have. So I used to have a like telescope. I used to be really into like planetary watching, and I feel like now it's more so. I feel like we're going to end up getting space Minecraft versus multiplanetary species, meaning we're going to get these rockets are going to go to a different asteroid, mine a bunch of stuff, bring resources back, but we're never actually going to get people outside and do all these other things. I think it's going to be a cash grab in space.
Okay, so wow, what a fascinating bundle of things to put on the table. Okay, everybody, please, I beg of you to remember money is awesome. Why is money awesome? Money is awesome because it is what's known as proof of work. So as a species, we realized, and this is an incredible thing that we've done, as a species, we realized, okay, wait a second. I have to exist, right, across time. So during that time, I need to make sure that I survive. And one of the reasons that cultures that had winters ended up just beating cultures that don't is when you have a winter, you're like, I need to plan ahead. This is why, reason number 462, why Minecraft is the greatest game of all time. A simple mechanic known as darkness controls danger. It is utterly brilliant. And you very quickly learn, I have to plan ahead for the night. So I have to build safety or I have to build torches for caves because darkness, I will encounter darkness. Darkness is dangerous. So humans realized not only is darkness dangerous, big animals are dangerous, snakes are dangerous, weather exposure is dangerous, and we live in this weird cycle. And so every so often it gets excruciatingly cold and food becomes hard to find. And so you start having to plan for that. And so then you go, okay, with my time right now, I can jerk off, flirt with that chick, joke around with my boys, or plan for the future. Okay. So you map out how you're going to spend your time, and everybody's allocation is going to be different. The quote unquote rich people are the ones that said, no, I'm going to plan ahead. I'm going to put all my time into planning ahead. So maybe bang chicks, plan ahead, right? Because that's about having kids, which is also future planning. And then I'm going to like collect grain once we get into agriculture. But before that, I'm going to like map a better path, set a better trap, whatever, to get those resources. Mm-hmm. So when I hear you say, space is going to be like the Minecraft version and it's just going to be a cash grab, I'm like, yes, because we are hardwired to want to turn our time into resources. And so the acquisition of resources is awesome. Now, if somebody lets it become pathological and they want to pursue the acquisition of resources and they have no sense of self, they don't connect with other people, they have no meaning and purpose, I get it. It ends up, it's a very sad existence. And this is why a billionaire can accumulate all that money only to kill themselves. But if you're confused about why we will always pursue money because it has extreme utility, then life is going to get very confusing. So space needs to be a quote unquote cash grab. It's the thing that will incentivize people to go do it because right now on Earth, they have to say, I need to have something to show for my time. And so getting into space has to be a cash grab because that's return on time. So cool. That's why it always is motivated by that first. And then it democratizes and it goes across other people. We'll never get to space if there's no cash grab. In fact, the brilliance of Elon is he's been able to cash grab every step of the way. So he hasn't needed people to go, hey, just fund my vision to Mars. He's gone, I'm going to launch more satellites, which is just a cash grab for somebody, right? And so I'm going to build this thing. I'm going to make launching satellites cheaper, cash grab for people trying to do something. And then I'm going to leverage that to build this other thing. This is why, by the way, I do Impact Theory University. I will often get asked by my students who understand that the math doesn't make sense for why I do Impact Theory University because the company is already making plenty of money. So, and I already have ridiculous amounts of money. So it's like, why am I doing Impact Theory University? Exactly. I do it for two reasons. One, entrepreneurs solve all the problems and generate all the tax revenue. So teaching people how to be entrepreneurs is very, very smart. And then two, my video game is a black hole of investment. Video games are excruciatingly expensive. So my trade with myself is I will go do this thing, which I think is very good for the world anyway, but it also allows me to fund my game. So I don't need my game to be successful. I can just keep developing and developing and developing and developing and developing until I fucking figure this out. So that's the model, is you launch satellites, even though that's not really your goal. Your goal is to make Earth a multiplanetary species. Got it. But you've got to make money along the way. So I probably will eventually stop teaching entrepreneurs, but it is how I have a constant fuel source for the game. So anyway, cash grabs are good. Of course, they can turn pathological. But anyway, I just want people to have the right relationship to money.
Cash grabs are good unless you're Disney and it's Tron.
Ayo! Haven't seen it, but heard it's terrible.
And it's also a cash grab. All right, that's all I got.
All right, boys and girls, I am so grateful to you guys showing up because I really enjoy thinking through these problems. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being a part of the conversation. Wow, does it matter to us. We are so grateful to each and every one of you guys. You're amazing. Even when you're telling me that I am dumb, it's still wonderful. What TCG? Pookie, if you want to talk TCG, Lord knows that I hope this community gets excited about it because when I go in on something, I go all the way in.
I don't know what TCG
For
is.
now, I'll just say trading card game. I'm not going to play the game at all. I'm just collecting. But I'm going to start with
Pokemon?
One Piece, Gundam. What?
Like Pokemon?
Yes, but I'm not a Pokemon guy. But
just the category of trading card
yes.
games. Got it.
So I could see myself getting addicted enough that I end up getting into Pokemon, but right now, Pokemon art doesn't speak to me. Anyway, thank you guys all. You're amazing. I'll see you on Friday, 6 a.m. All right, everybody. Also, the channel's doing great. You guys, thank you so much. Our Mondays, everything is popping off with the deep dives. Please keep watching those. God, you've made that our #1 piece of content. And then the interviews, we got so much love on the Malice interview. So if you haven't watched the Michael Malice interview, just came out yesterday, watch it. Let me know what you guys think. Here is a truth no one tells you about scaling a business. The #1 reason 7-figure founders fail is not because of bad strategy. It's people. What built your $3 million company will break it on the way to 100 million. I know firsthand. I've seen it so many times. Your team cracks, politics creep in, your A players leave, and suddenly the company you fought to build out of nothing is stalling out. I co-founded Quest Nutrition and scaled it from $0 to $1 billion sale. I've conducted more than 1,600 interviews myself. And I'm telling you right now, most founders lose because they never build a real leadership operating system. That's why I'm hosting an exclusive workshop for founders doing $1 million or more in annual revenue. But if you're scaling fast and your team is starting to crack, this will save you years of pain. Click the link in the show notes, register for the workshop now, and I will see you guys there. If you like this conversation, check out this episode to learn more. Candace Owens is vindicated over her claims that Charlie Kirk planned to split with Israel. That's actually now been backed up by Turning Point themselves. Stephen Miller goes ham over attacks against ICE and the need for troops in both Chicago and Portland, whether they're targeting